If you're a lacrosse player looking to take your core strength to the next level, this is the video for you. What's going on, guys? Cal here from Relentless Lacrosse, and today we're going to go over the best core exercises for lacrosse players. If you're a lacrosse player trying to get your game to the next level, then you know you need to be playing stronger and more powerful in the field, and the core muscles are so essential to really take all of those attributes to the next level. Today we're not going to be going over just basic exercises like the crunch or the sit-up. We're eliminating all of those and really starting to dial in our core training to make sure that it's the exercises that translate. Let's dive in. All right, so before we dive in, we're going to be focusing on a couple of elements today. So first of all is we need to be focusing on anti-extension, and these are the muscles that are basically going to be pulling our core down and kind of resisting against that anti-extension. So if we have extension in our back, we lose all of our power, all of our strength, whether it's a hit or we're trying to get a shot. If we get into that extension where our back is actually rounded up, we've opened up our rib cage, we're leaking out power. So all of our exercises today, we're going to be focused on pulling that rib cage down and kind of flexing those abs the entire time. And then our second focus is going to be an anti-side flexion. So a lot of lacrosse players, whether they're getting bumped off the ball or they're actually shooting, it all comes down to being able to create that rigid trunk from top to bottom. And so we're going to be fighting not only anti-extension and keeping our back completely flat that way, but also not going into side flexion at all as well. So in all of our exercises, we want to make sure that we're focusing on those two elements, not opening up our ribs in either direction. All right, so our first exercise here is the high plank. And so we've got a couple of different variations, right from beginner to elite here. So my first version is just going to be the basic high plank. I want to make sure, again, I'm not fighting into extension here. I'm finding those muscles where I'm super braced, my ribs are being pulled down into my hips, and I'm creating that strong, rigid position. My first variation would just be a high plank shoulder touch. I'm just going to hold this for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then going over to the other side. Again, I don't want to create any sort of rotation here, nor do I want to create any sort of extension. So I'm just going to be focusing on going slowly here. That would be our level 1. If you feel that's already too easy, and for our elite players that probably is, we would go into our second version, which is just going to be an overhead reach. As I'm reaching up overhead, I have the natural inclination to open up. So again, I need to pull that down, get nice and strong here, hold for a second, and then over to my other side. Now, if you wanted to take this to the next level still, you would have one leg off. And so as I'm up here, I'm reaching out, I'm creating a little bit more stability, trying to fight against that shake, which is completely natural, even for our elite players, to get that stability and then over to the next leg. This is an awesome exercise. Make sure you're going for 12 to 15 reps, getting really dialed in and getting really strong here. All right, our next exercise is a side plank, and this is probably one you've seen before, and it is super basic, but we're gonna add a couple different tweaks here to really take it to the next level. So again, if you haven't seen this exercise before, basically we wanna make sure that our hips are up, my glutes are super squeezed, and everything is braced really from head to toe. Now this is pretty basic. You hold it for 20 to 30 seconds, but if 30 seconds starts to get easy, this is the variation we use with our more elite players. I'm getting into my high plank, or my side plank, I'm squeezing up everything, and I'm gonna take my elbow down to the turf, and then I'm opening up. And so I'm actually going to rep this out for around 12 reps per side. Again, making sure that it's just basically my upper body rotating as if I'm shooting here and not letting my hips rotate down or anything like that. So find your fully braced position, get strong, do 12 to 15 to more reps, and then switch over to the other side. Our next exercise here is a high plank mountain climber. And so this is an exercise you might have seen go very fast. It's often used in HIIT workouts and stuff like that, but we're gonna do a very slow version and challenge our entire body stability. So I'm gonna get set up in a high plank, and instead of going fast and trying to get my elbows up to my knees, I'm gonna be taking my knee as slow as I can up to my elbow, holding for a second, and then I'm going to the other side. So I wanna stay very dialed in with my movements here, staying nice and strong, going as slow as possible. Now you could take this to the next level where we're actually be going from here. I'm gonna take my knee down to my wrist, back over to my other wrist, holding and coming right back. Now this is an awesome exercise where it feels like you have to rotate, and we're trying to stay braced and actually stay strong the entire time. 12 to 15 reps again, staying super braced. Get locked in here and get dialed in. All right, our next exercise here is the activated bird dog or the bear crawl. So this is an exercise where it's less core in the classic sense, where we're not just firing up our abs, but we're really gonna start to challenge some of the muscles on our low back or our entire trunk here. So for the activated bird dog, all I'm gonna get here is I'm gonna take my knees off the turf just a little bit here, and then I'm gonna have a gentle reach. So I'm trying to create a straight line to my head to my toe, and then just over to the other side, getting really dialed in with my movement, hold it for a second, and then let go. So this is an awesome exercise where you can really start to challenge all of the muscles in that core and really start to get dialed in. Now, if you wanted to take this to the next level, we typically use the bear crawl. So this is basically the exact same movement. I'm right up here, and then I'm just gonna be taking a super small step here, one at a time, and getting really dialed in with my movement. Again, I don't want my butt to flare up nor down, staying really tight right, so this is one of those movements that as you start to fatigue, you naturally start to open up. And so we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're staying dialed in our core, bringing those ribs down to our hips and getting super, super tight. For our bear crawl, we want to be going around 12 steps out and then 12 steps backwards, really controlling your movement pattern. All right, so our next exercise is the ab wheel. And this is one of my absolute favorite tools for lacrosse players because it really takes their core to the next level while challenging it deliberately. So a lot of times we struggle to find external load on our abs, whether it is a bear crawl or any sort of these exercises, which is an awesome postural exercise. The ab wheel actually starts to load. And so this is the perfect exercise to really take that actual core and ab strength to the next level. So I'm gonna get set up on my knees. And so a lot of players, they're gonna be at this level. Whether you are a PB or pro, a lot of lacrosse players, they need to get dialed in here and just off their knees. So for starters, I'm gonna be going out as slow as I can and trying to get as low as I can where I can control and then come right back up. So now we want to focus on a couple of different points here. As I'm reaching out, I want to make sure that my back's not opening up. I'm not having any kind of default position where I'm actually creating extension through my low back. So I'm squeezing my abs down the entire time. And then on the way up, I want to make sure that I'm creating an even tighter flex where I'm pushing down into the ground and lifting up. So it's not just my arms kind of wheeling back and forth. It really is creating that lever where we're actually driving into the ground to come back up. This is an amazing exercise. If you're ready to take it to the next level, you could go right off your knees. I would start basically just knees to start off and then coming down and then back up. But if you're past that, you can go off your knees, go your feet your entire time. This is an amazing core exercise. 10 reps, get dialed in here, let's go. All right, so one of my favorite all-time anti-extension exercises for lacrosse players is the dead bug. And so this is an exercise you can do body weight, and we will do body weight with a lot of our younger athletes, but for our elite athletes, we want to find some sort of weight. And so today I'm just using a dumbbell. You could use literally anything you have at home to just create a little bit extra challenge here. So the goal of the dead bug is to make sure that at no point is my lower back popping off the turf. So I'm getting in this position where I'm driving my ribs down, my low back is basically, I have no more room here between here and the turf, and then I'm just lifting off. All right, so for the bodyweight version, I would just be having my opposite hand and leg go out. I'm staying super braced, and now as I reach out, anytime that I'm reaching out my leg, I feel like my lower back's trying to come off the turf, and that's what we're fighting against. Now, I find for a lot of our older players, that's not so much a challenge anymore. For the younger players, we're starting to teach how we can actually find that brace position, but for our older players, we need to create some sort of challenge, and so this doesn't have to be heavy. I'd say let's start with like a 10 or something like that and then move up. But for me, I'm gonna get set up where I have this dumbbell completely over my head. I'm finding that position where I'm locked down to the ground, and then as I start to go overhead with the weight, I have one leg go out and then I'm coming back up. So I really want to make sure as I'm having that reach out and I'm pausing here for a second that my lower back is not popping up. And that's the whole challenge of the exercise, is we have to be pushing down the whole time. We have to be staying super, super strong and braced. And this is an amazing exercise to challenge not only your abs, but your entire anti-extension muscles to take your game to the next level. 12 reps here, get dialed in, let's get it. All right, so those were some awesome exercises to challenge both anti-extension and side flexion here. But now we're gonna focus on something called anti-rotation. And this is so valuable, not only so that we can create more brace positions on the field, but also start to develop some strength in that rotation-based movement pattern, right? So anytime we're shooting, we're focusing on these flexors. And so this is one of my all-time favorites. It's just called the Pallof Press. I'm gonna be looping my band through here. You could also, if you're in the gym, use some sort of cable. But for our case, if we're just at home, we're at the field, anything like that, we're gonna just use the band. And so I'm gonna get set up in my athletic position right away, and I'm just gonna be pressing straight out and straight back. And so I want this right off of my chest, going straight out. It's gonna start to pull me this way, right? Which is natural. That's what we want. We want to have that resistance this way. We're gonna be fighting that with our anti-rotation muscles and staying super braced forward. So I wanna make sure nothing's pulling sideways. Everything's fully braced. Now, if this is too easy, we could go into a split squat. And again, this is a little bit more lacrosse specific. Again, I'm finding that kind of tall braced position and pressing straight out. It's pulling me this way, I'm bracing against it, and I'm coming back. So I want to hit this for 12 to 15 reps, get really dialed in here. This is one of those exercises that's super valuable, but only if we're focused on finding that brace position. All right, so our next exercise is still an anti-rotation exercise, but this time we're actually gonna be moving through it a little bit. So I'm gonna hook my band even higher again. Again, if I was using a cable, I'd slide it up probably to the top. And then once I've actually made it tight with my J-hook, I'm gonna be getting down into a half kneel. So I actually want my inside knee to be up. I'm finding a position that's nice and tall and braced right to begin with. So I'm already feeling like my abs are super squeezed. I could get knocked around here, and I'm staying braced. So now we're still gonna be focusing on those anti-rotation muscles in the lower. So nothing's rotating basically below my chest. So my ribs, everything's like fully braced below there. My hips, my glutes, everything's squeezed. And then I'm gonna be creating some rotation through my upper back down. So again, this is an exercise we call the rotational chop. We're staying super braced, coming right down, hold for a half second, and then coming up. So this is not an exercise where we want to get aggressive and flex down into it. We really want to make sure that our movement's dialed in, squeeze, and then let go. So we could take this to a whole next level, and we have the half kneeling chop to raise here. So I'm going to be focusing a little bit less pressure here, but I'm going to be focusing on still in that absolute tall, strong position. As I'm coming down here, now I'm actually gonna raise up. I know this is an opportunity to actually challenge a lot more of those anti-extension and side flexion muscles by staying fully braced. So I have my chop here, and then once I'm down, I'm raising, resisting, and coming right back down. Two amazing exercises to really challenge the entire core strength here and start to develop the muscles that actually translate to the rotational based movements that you're going to be using on the lacrosse field. All right guys, so if you're a lacrosse player that's trying to get stronger and more powerful, then you need to be focusing on your core muscles. Everything comes from the trunk, everything comes from the core, and so you can be focusing on rotating, pushing harder, pulling harder, any of those movements in the gym, but if you don't have the core to actually be able to brace against some of those movements, you're never actually going to take your strength to the next level. So these are the exercises you need to be doing. Either cherry pick some of your favorites and put them in your workout, or use as an entire sequence and just keep on rotating through 3 or 4 times at the end of a workout or practice or something like that, because core strength is so essential for lacrosse players. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, guys, head over to relentlesslacrosse.com, where we have tons of different training programs, articles, and videos, everything designed to take your game to the next level. Get out there and get relentless.